Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cerberus. I'm Payman Ascari. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mr. Timothy Knight and Mr. Andre Milosh. Tim, did you have technical difficulties on your end? I couldn't hear the intro.
No, I heard the intro.
All right, good. The problem's just on my end.
You're in the US.
Huh?
It's the tariff.
The tariffs, yeah. Sunspots.
Tariffing the radio waves.
Tim, how are you doing this week?
Good. Busy. Arranged for a wreath for the People's Party of Canada in British Columbia to be laid here in the Chilliwack Cenotaph on Vedder, and got some good photography. Very grateful to Jeff Galbraith for representing us there. So that was good. A very good event. Felt very traditional. Felt quite real. There's the land acknowledgement was gratefully only one sentence, right? And so the Canada-centric tone, the reading of the various war poems, right? Flanders Fields and bugle calls. It's a lot of good photography. A very good moment. Small community, about 3,000 people were down on our side. And the north side of the town has another cenotaph, and they usually get a couple thousand up there as well. So it's been a very good week that way. It was encouraging, very encouraging.
Glad to hear that. And Andre, how about you? How are you doing?
Well, the week started very badly with the 12-hour power outage, but we live in a third world country in Quebec, so it's quite normal. They're announcing 10 millimeters of ice rain with 2 centimeters of snow. So we will have most probably a power outage of 24 hours. I brought 2 cords of wood. We have 25 gallons of water. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. We're getting used to it. I'm planning to move to Africa maybe next year.
It'll be a step up.
Yes. So if I disappear, it's a Hydro-Quebec problem.
You're in pretty rough shape when you choose dengue fever over an ice storm.
Well, 1998 9 storm was quite an event. 40 days without electricity, and it's what they call the ice triangle.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite half of the high voltage power grid, transmission grid around Montreal was completely destroyed. So it was quite an event. So, you don't have those problems in Africa.
Would have been the perfect moment for a Carrington event. All that
maybe.
I won't bore people with my situation. I've had a hellish day, but why don't we, before we jump into the main topics today, I could just ask everybody who's currently watching if you could share the space. We'd really appreciate it. We want to boost our numbers, trying to break some records. I think the record right now is we did an episode, we had 750 live viewers, Andre. That was a couple of weeks back, so we're trying to break that. And as always, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. And it might look like we're not looking at your questions, but near the end, we're going to get to them, and we'll answer as many questions as possible. Today, we've decided to focus on the sort of the media space, and that there's are mainly alternative media, but just media in general. And from my perspective, for a while it felt like there was an election on the horizon, and then now it seems sort of it's not clear whether there will be an election or not. But when the election was coming, the independent media space completely lost its mind, and after that, I noticed they started escalating. Maybe not with the election, but it was with the ostrich farm thing, and then also with this measles this measles scare that's coming out of seemingly out of nowhere, and it's a classic playbook from mainstream media. It's bleeding over to alternative media, which is, you know, like, scare the people, get them divided, get them fighting against each other, and then while they're distracted, the legislature is doing the bidding of, you know, whoever runs the political parties. For example, Bill C8, Bill C9, and the people are just really demoralized. And I myself, I'm just exhausted, right? And we're going to need to get some wins to shore up morale. But I'm going to hand it over to Andre. But that's basically the main topics of discussion for today. And yeah, Andre, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, if you bring the quote, one of my essay, so I can comment on it.
That's not the one.
No, that's not the one.
All right, let's add this
Technical
guy. There you go.
problem. So if I just read it, confide in your spiritual advisor, Mr. Giggle. You know, Mr. Giggle, Mr. Google. I made fun of those platform. He will tell you what to think. So what we're experiencing now, it is always the same thing. Expert tells you what to think. The further we flee from social media, the higher we climb, the thinner the air becomes, and the fewer people there are on ideological respirators. At a certain altitude, we find ourselves thinking for ourselves, and then horror. We realize with some anxiety that we are no longer breathing, but thinking. This is because the air of criticism fills our lungs, while the carbon dioxide of modern ready-made ideology suffocates our conscience. To avoid sinking into the poison that is consensus, we must then evolve for a certain period of time in apnea, emptying our clouded brains by spitting out all the nonsense accumulated over the years through excessive exposure to the mainstream media. We are not only brainwashed, but we are polluted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by information. We know since it's not necessarily since internet. Before that, it was mainstream media, but television. 1993, I got rid of my television and I started to drift towards something else. Not information. Didn't mean that I was not informed, but I was so far away from the propaganda that I was finding this awkward. I brought this quote because I see the same tendency now, 30 years after, with the alternative media. What you mentioned, payment, is very interesting. They picked up during the electoral campaign, and then they started to fade slowly because they all have their own business model. We can refer to Rebel News with the ostriches. Here in Quebec, we have some alternative media who are pro-Trump, and they if you even dare to criticize their savior, they will excommunicate you. They will crucify you, and there's no such thing as a rational debate. So I will not talk too long because maybe we will talk more about the model of mainstream media and compare it with the model of alternative media, including what we're doing at Cerberus, and how it affects people, how people can recover a sense of rationality so they could at least disconnect themselves, or when they receive an information, take a little bit of distance, think by themselves, and after that they can forge and create their own opinion. But Tim, you also you were working on those models because you did not a survey but an analysis of all those models, and maybe you can present this to us.
I've been ranting and railing against the way in which right-wing / alternative media have been delivering their business and trying to generate interest and loyalty and trust, because I really began paying attention to them during the COVID event and saw that they rose up as a vocal and organized protest or activism and whatnot against it. And then after that quote unquote, crisis, quote unquote, subsided, right? It was, what was Trudeau's words? Suspended. They never actually ended the mandates, they were suspended. After that, I found that the various right-wing media that most of us on this side of the fulcrum are familiar with began to shift their approach back more toward a more centric perspective. And some of them even to the point of outrightly supporting the Conservative Party of Canada, such as True North with Andrew, I forgot his name. He just
Coin?
No. True North was Andrew. I can't remember his
Andrew
name now.
Lawton.
Thank you. And now he's a member of the Conservative Party, right? So I've seen people maneuver personal goals using their brand in order to to advance personal goals. I mean, it's your business, right? Like in a free market, you feel free to do as you see fit. But as an ideologue, I'm thinking you should kind of stay true to the brand, or at least the quote unquote movement. And do these right wing or alternative brands actually represent their followers anymore? Were they ever actually sticking to journalistic integrity? Were they only ever really ambulance chasers and pamphleteers, right? For example, this is my own personal axe to grind, is the Rebel News using David Menzies every single time he manages to get himself arrested in that ridiculous hat, right? It gives Rebel News an opportunity to do a GoFundMe, et cetera, to get him out of jail or to support his lawyer, et cetera, and get him paid. And a bit of me is thinking, is this a little bit maybe of the news reporter being the news creator, right? So it's, and I have to ask that question, because here on what we're trying to do with audiences is to show them the truth of the matter and then think for yourself. Are we going to add color to it? Well, obviously we are, right? Obviously we are. But what we want you to do is honest journalistic integrity, and to let the viewer decide for themselves. So what I've done is I did a couple of bits of research, and that will, through the course of the show, I'll share what that whole market of alternative media has turned into over the last, well, since the 90s, right? And how the internet has forced mainstream media to change its approach, and how that gap gave an opportunity for alternative media to slide in and fill it, because they're smaller, they're agile, they're quicker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Am I going to smack talk right-wing media? I am, because you're intelligent people and you deserve to be told the truth. And our betters out there, who are better at alternate media than we are, because we've only been in this game for a few months, is to refocus on journalistic integrity. And I'll show you where other people's business models are actually taking advantage of you. So anyway, that's my summary for now.
Just a couple of shout outs. Squirrel Nuts, thank you for reposting the stream and for watching almost every week. Same with the Fierce Lioness. If anybody else could repost, we'd appreciate it. In some respects, I can understand that the media, people who do independent media, they face sort of two challenges. The first one is emotion generates more clicks, which generates more revenue. So the three of us are on here. Andre's a philosopher, you're a historian, I'm an engineer trying to break this stuff down. It doesn't get people angry. It doesn't get them emotional. So maybe that's why we're not breaking 100,000 viewers per episode. And then the other thing is that they do have to generate revenue. Like Rebel News, whatever we think of them, we don't really think too highly. They have staff. They have to pay the staff. And sometimes they have to do, I'm not talking about the ambulance chasing David Menzies. I'm talking about they have to pick stories that resonate. They're beholden to their viewership is what I'm saying. They're slaves to their viewership. So they don't have the same latitude that the three of us have here, where Andre can talk about the Romanovs and you can talk about common law. If they did that, they would go bankrupt. That I understand. I want to make a honorable mention for Wiretap Media. They're independent media. They're right of center. Are they perfect? No, but so far they're doing a far better job, in my opinion, of educating people than Rebel News. They as well are beholden to clicks, though, so every once in a while they have to do something to get people emotional. One other thing I'll mention, seemingly people have come out of nowhere, and there's one girl, her name is Jasmine. I can't remember what her full name is, but she manages to land the US ambassador to Canada, and she like she came out of nowhere. That you don't do that. That's not natural. And I was told that she has a #1 podcast in Canada right now, which is again not normal. So she has a media background. She had a Rolodex. She comes over. She's got money behind her, and this is not organic. This is not grassroots. You two might, I don't know if you know this. There's a gentleman named Mario. He does podcasts. He floats his face on top of video, and he gives a breakdown of it. Now, he's a cheerleader for the Conservative Party, but I can't fault him too much. At least he's doing something to educate people. He's not taking it one step further like the three of us are doing, to try to tie it into philosophical aspects, or getting Charles Fichtner in to tie everything together, give a vision. But like that's another one of our competitors that we have to deal with. But yeah, it's a very seedy environment right now. The ones that are honest, like the three of us, Jason James, my other co-host Chris Erickson, JP Berg, we're coming up, but we're getting out. The competition is winning. We're not. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, they're not winning. It's a marathon. So who will win after 26 mile? We can maybe we will see the turtle or the rabbit. Don't forget, you were mentioning Jasmine. I forget. You don't know her last name. You said she has a background in journalism. That's strike one against her. It doesn't help necessarily, because when you have, for example, bachelor's degree in political science, politics is the art of language. Science is a process, rational process. So you having a bachelor's degree in political science is not. It doesn't help you think rationally. You mentioned another thing that is important. You were talking about the emotional aspect. Of course, it's their business model. And, we have this concept of the black pill, the red pill, the blue pill. I think you, Tim, and I, it's the sleeping pill. We make people...
Skittles.
Those advertisements, those commercials about Skittles are very funny. But more seriously, media, the medium is supposed to help you go through something, an event, that the medium that you have when you see a thunderstorm, it's your eyes, your ears, it's your sense. So you have to use the medium as a way to understand the reality. The mainstream media, we say it, the expression says it, mainstream, centered. It's supposed to be, mainstream should be unfiltered, direct, delivery of the event. The media they created, so there's always a bias. If you compare this with the alternative media, they have the same bias. And the bias in the Western world is money. It is not complicated. CBC, it's a crap media. Since as national media, Radio-Canada is the same thing. Even if I don't watch them, finally, I have the same information that everybody has, because I don't need them. I can cross-reference all the information that I go and find for myself. And then after that, I have a rational opinion about it. Mainstream media, they're not reporting nothing anymore. And now the problem is that alternative media, they're copying the model. because it is a business model. They have to make money. Let's be honest. We're not monetizing Cerberus, and we have a freedom that most media don't have. In literature, a writer that did not publish doesn't have any readers, so the reader don't have any expectation. There's a concept in literature, the horizon, expecting horizon. I published the first novel, and my reader, they like it, and they say, oh, that's the style of Andre Meloche, I like it. When he will publish his second novel, we expect this and that, and then suddenly I write something completely different. They will say, wait a second, I will never buy this book again. So we don't have this. We have this freedom. Alternative media, they don't have it, or they're losing it through their business model. And mainstream media, they certainly don't have it because they're financed by the government. And so they are just an organ of propaganda for the government. And they expect us, that's why I was making fun with the quote about Mr. Giggle and expert. They tell you, shut up and comply. Sorry, we don't live in a free speech society. If somebody tells me shut up and comply, I will end on something. 2020, with the COVID mandate, we understood very well where they are. They are accomplice of criminal that are in the House of Commons. So if we don't say it, nobody will. You can believe me or not, but we saw a lot of people lose their job. We saw, it was horrible in Quebec. It was horrible in Canada. Most probably Canada was the worst place on the planet for the COVID mandate. So the mainstream media are burned. Now, what will happen with the alternative media? Maybe, Tim, you will refer to this, because comparing them, you with this analysis, we can see the differences in the characteristic of each of them.
Payman's drinking tea. I was expecting him to hand off to me, but apparently not. I'll pick up my Skittles and keep moving. So, pressing in on this idea, the research, I ask AI a bunch of questions, and then I pick on it until it gives me something that's actually repeatable to a public audience that doesn't look like slop, right? Although sometimes slop tastes great because you don't really care, because Skittles. But generally in the marketplace are three different types of business models for modern journalism. And one is called the mission-driven nonprofit. An example of that would be the Narwhal, which is very left-wing, but they're nonprofits. So where do they get their money from, right? Dedicated donor base, right? Another would be the Tyee, which is so remarkably effective out here in British Columbia that it actually gets news awards from mainstream news, right? But that is also a nonprofit style construction, and it can dip into political speak because of the way it shells underneath of a nonprofit, and that's a different conversation. But so that they're and that these, let's say, leveraging the registered journalism organization moniker. So then what us on the right will say is, oh, well, they're bought and paid for by the government, and that immediately creates an actual a discussion between the us and them, and the mere us and them, which is still part of the team sport ideologue, right, discussion that we're watching happen in Parliament, where they appear to be at odds, but they in fact are not, right? That there is a two wings on the same bird effect. And the for-profit disruptors. So we're looking at Canada Land, which is an older one, and it was Canada Land that broke the WE scandal, and they're a for-profit model. So so they get their money directly from either from subscribers or from external donors or from fundraising events, etc. But they are for-profit. The partisan ideologues, and these, we usually say partisan, we usually refer to the left when we talk, we use that language. But here, it's distinctly saying rebel news, post-millennial, etc. But the post-millennial does the bulk of their activity in the United States, right? So what they're doing is they are leveraging the energy and the size of the American market, also using Canadian political content. So we have three general types of business models where the partisan ideologues, which we've seen a marked increase on the right, specifically since COVID, and we get it. I understand it. You stepped in as a protester who had a voice, and you could see things, and you could identify things, and you could capture an audience, and you could build loyalty, you could build a reputation, but you're still a protest. You're still an activist. And for example, regarding the Rebel in particular, and I'm not talking about the individual reporters, it's always leadership. So I'm referring to Ezra going to apply for his, what is it called? Registered Journalism Organization. He actually went to the government and applied for their journalistic grant. He applied for it and was refused, and took them to court. And the court said, look, when 96% of your work is regurgitated and it's not journalism, how are we supposed to give you a journalism accreditation? And it's true, right? So our desire here with our show is to present journalistic integrity. That we find the clickbaity stuff because sometimes it's entertaining, but we don't stay there. We want to get into the meat of the thing, and that requires us, usually Andre, right, doing the back work, the step up, and then Payman, because he has so much exposure through inlay terms, where he has you're up to like 230 interviews now, right? And so, as far as I'm concerned, as a journalist, Payman is probably truest to the mark because he doesn't allow his personal, ideology, his personal worldview to interfere with allowing his guests to speak their mind. Right. So that's probably as close as you're going to get the actual journalism as you can without breaking out all the citations and everything. So that's another type of journalism that to me actually works. The problem is people like ourselves tend to come off as quite dry. We tend to be very academic, and that's where the audience has to decide how they want to engage with that. So we try to be light, we try to be smart-mouthed on occasion. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we sit here in our podcast chatting with each other after hours saying, what do we want to do with this? Where do we want to go? Because now this is the third episode of our second year. So we've been sitting in the back going, how do we want to do this? And well, we should have a look at the marketplace. We should look at our competitors. We should look at our allies, and we have an honest look at it. And in me doing the research for that honest look, I realized that most of the right wing or alternative media, be it print, be it podcast or blogs or Substack or et cetera, most of them have lost their original focus because the original focus has changed and they did not adapt to it. Rebel News remains a clickbaity business model. I'm not referring to the individual reporters, David Menzies, I like to pick on, but I'm not referring to them specifically, but the business model. So if we were to teach our audience, this audience, anything, it would be to don't be caught up in the moment of the energy, even though it ideologically aligns with you well, and much of it does, right? Much of it does. I think what Drea Humphreys did regarding the ostriches was exemplary work. And even though she's with the Rebel, she did exemplary work, right? So, and I recognize that. But a lot of that matches with me ideologically. So there's that potential interference. So when I did this research, I'm thinking, what are the business models? Is this monolithic? Or is it spread apart, right? And also that we understand that as it has been with media, going all the way back to pictographs, right? Carvings, right? Architecture, storytelling, religion, music, it's all storytelling. What is its purpose? So when a alternate media group or individual or company sits in front of you and tells you a story, you ask yourself, what is the purpose? What are they getting out of it? That's probably the big question, right? What are they getting out of it? And in the spirit of journalistic integrity, are they maintaining those standards? So that's my thought on that direction.
Good stuff, Tim. I guess more housekeeping. I just wanted to bring up Thunderbird World Media. Thank you, gentlemen, for bringing a whole new look on Canada through this podcast. You're most welcome. And you're absolutely right. Just if everybody could share the space, we'd appreciate it. And if you have a question, put it in the comments. We'll get to it at the end. Tim, last episode, the three of us, we went over a very, very consequential topic to Canada, which is, the debt, the economy, the budget, everything, because the budget dropped. I was hoping to get a couple thousand viewers, but we didn't because it's the debt. Canadians don't care about debt. They care about, pumpkin spice lattes. But
Care about Palestinian flags.
yeah, that's true. We should get to that as well. In preparation for that episode, you said you turned around and you said, "My God, the amount of work we're doing to prepare for this episode, it shows that the mainstream media has abdicated its responsibility." And so sort of we're stepping into that void to fill it out. I wanted to talk about how things have changed so much in the last 6 years. It's unbelievable. When I started 6 years ago, so we're talking 2020 now, 2019, I was just a little child. Like, I was afraid to talk to people at protests. When I ran for election, I was terrified of talking to the voters. When I started my podcast, I didn't know how to speak. I had no idea the banking system runs everything. The debt is this issue. I remember I was naive. I thought that the media was here to educate us, not to indoctrinate us, essentially act as agents of the state. You mentioned how the audience, the people have drifted, they've lost focus. If you look at Substack, when COVID hit, there was a handful of good articles on there, a handful of good writers, and you could almost follow them all. Fast forward 6 years, I am inundated with information, and to the point where I'm having a nervous breakdown. I can't focus. I don't read anything on Substack anymore. Every day people share 15 Substack articles with me and 4 podcasts. And, in 24 hours in a day, you can't do it all. The three of us have also talked about how when we started this, and this is only a year and a bit now that we've started this, there weren't that many 3-person podcasts, but now there are a lot. I'm a part of one as well. So the space is changing. You pointed out correctly that they, at the end of the day, Andre pointed out, they do have to make money. So there's a lot of pressure, and I don't think the right-wing independent media, it never really had a chance. It was a protest movement to start. It was a bunch of people who felt good. They were doing, the right thing, standing up to tyranny. Now that the tyranny is, I don't want to say gone, but exposed, and everyone's like, okay, we know that. Why are you guys still here? We don't need right-wing media anymore. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, Tim mentioned 3 things. I first of all, I have a remark when he mentioned, media not for profit. Does that include We Charity? Thank you for clarifying this. We show what means not for profit. They say, okay, we rely on donation, but where's the accountability? That's the first thing. You mentioned something about journalism integrity. That's an oxymoron today. I like it when you're mute. I cannot hear you're laughing. You laughing. The third remark is true. What you just said, payment activism. Many people, they reacted to the event in the last 6 years. I will go back to my own experience that as a writer, I write since now 32 years. And in 2020, I also reacted because of the event, and I wrote 2 essays back to back. The first one, 350 pages, the second one, practically 300 pages in 3 years maximum. You can imagine the amount of energy I put, and they are very funny essays. They're not, I don't consider myself a very serious writer, but anyway, the idea was it pushed me to write more, and I engaged with the People's Party last year. This is where I met you because you invited me. I was not watching YouTube Rumble, Odyssey. I was not on Twitter. I was not on. I was not. I was nowhere. I was. I was a ghost. And because I wanted to run, I said, okay, I have to. I have to pick up a little bit. We arrive at a point where we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to do with our life? The idea in 2020, with the rise of the People's Party, and I think Tim mentioned mentioned it many times, the fact that they were a protest and then they moved to activism. They did not evolve toward, I would say, a structured party. So, and they end up, in the dead end. Look at alternative media. They acted the same way since 6 years. And you said it yourself, Payment. You didn't have experience, you were shy, but you gained experience, you matured. You matured. So those media, if they want to survive, those alternative media, if they want to survive, it's not only about money. It's what Tim mentioned. Okay, I made a joke. Journalism integrity. It's an oxymoron. It can be otherwise. It can be something serious. People can be serious when they deliver information, content. The three of us, we try to be serious. We try to be funny. It doesn't always work, but we try at least to be honest, and we say it. So alternative media, their success will rely on integrity, honesty, and modesty. Let's be modest. Also, we always say that we don't know everything. We present one aspect of an event, and then we can have a debate. It is funny because a man today came. They sell fish. They go with the truck, and we start to have a conversation about why I could not buy fish because I have power outage practically every week, and we drifted very fast toward a political aspect. And he said, "You know what I don't like? I don't like because the extreme right and the extreme left, they don't talk to each other. There's no debate." And it hit me because I was telling myself, even us, we cannot have debate with the left wing people. We're stuck, and that's why it's dangerous because those alternative media, they have this. Yes, go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
You can't have conversations or debate with leftist people because communists aren't people.
Well, I do agree that you make this point, and I think it is important. But we arrive at a point where we have to question ourselves: how do we face information in 2026 soon? How do we face information? Because you said it yourself, Payment. The fact that we are bombed with information, we we can make a burnout. It's quite easy when you work too hard, when your head is saturated with problem events. You will arrive at a point where you will break down. It will be a nervous breakdown, and this is dangerous not only for podcaster but for people. I always advise people, disconnect yourself. This take some distance to appreciate reading a book, taking a good book. You cannot read all the literature in the world. It is not possible. You will choose things that you like. You will choose things that will appeal to you, that will make you do an effort. Today, the danger with AI also is this: people don't make an effort anymore. The danger, and I read an article, was very interesting about AI. The AI will always present you a summary of the things, and you will not go to the website to read the long article. And this is a heavy tendency. So I advise people, try to disconnect from mainstream media first. Then with alternative media, you can be faithful with people you like, even if you disagree with them. And try also to take some distance, because media information is one aspect of reality.
Jim?
No, I was going to wait for you. You keep passing it off. Go ahead. Do something.
Oh no! Oh, you want me? I wanted you to follow up with what I wasn't listening to Andre. I was going to do another thing. You follow. Go ahead, and I want to follow up after you.
Okay. So one of the things I think that, and we are conservative minded, and we actually tend to be more toward the edge, right? More right than simple conservative. I think the three of us are of a like mind in that. A hive mind, JT. We are a hive mind of right wingers. I think to myself that we often make a very simple split, right? We tend to be very, what's Jordan likes to use the word resolution, right? But very low resolution. And we say, well, if they're getting public money, then they're shills. And if they're independent, then they're good. And so we use, if you're a shill, you're a lefty. And if you're independent, you're right. And then this is how we decide our fulcrum. This is how the truth is not as simple, because I just made myself a little matrix. I'm going to have to draw it out later and drop it on X and have someone else accept responsibility for making it. If you have a 4-grid matrix and you split public funding above and private funding below, but then on either side, you're going to get right wing getting public money, because it happens, left wing getting public money, because that's generally the case, because that's where they make their ideology money. Then down in private, you've got private right wing, which is right, like Rebel and Druthers with their newspaper and whatnot. And then you have private left wing, because that's the nonprofit, which is like Tyee, which is very left, and Narwhal, which is environmentally very left. So there's a grid of 4. And we can no longer, I don't think, after me doing this research and looking into this, I don't think for me it can be low resolution anymore. And based on this, I'm, as a business person and as a consultant, I'm reminded again and again and again, any operation lives and dies by its business model. And if you choose the wrong business model early and then you invest in it, you become entrenched. And the entrenchment makes it very difficult for you to adapt when your window of opportunity moves. Good old Overton, right? When the mandates were suspended, all of that began to move out of line of sight of the general public. And when that happens, organizations like these other alternate media, and even the podcasters, have to go looking for something else to draw their people's attention. Luckily, our federal government doesn't fail, because they keep giving us bullshit legislation that completely knocks us off our can. So we always will have something, because the trough will continue to feed us things that we can give an audience. But you live and die by your business model. And I think that the right-wing leaders ahead of us, particularly those from the COVID era, have not adapted to the change in the market. And now I changed that model a bit, because Juno News is an example of a successful adaptation. Because Juno News, which was what? Candace Malcolm, who started True North, and Keen Bext, who was from Rebel News, right? So Candace and Keen Bext got together and started Juno News. Why Juno? What a fantastic Toronto-centric name, right? What a great Ontario. The Juno Awards. That's exactly why they did it, right? Don't laugh. The psychology fits. It's my model. Don't mess with it, right? So, and Juno News is right center. They're right center. Where True North ended up out and out under Andrew Lawton. He wanted to say Tate, but not even close. Under Andrew Lawton, like Andrew Lawton ate 4 Andrew Tates for breakfast or something, but went straight into supporting, turned into a conservative shill. And there are others who were, I can't remember his name. And of course it escapes me when it matters the most. But there are others, bloggers, podcast type people, who rose up quickly. And then once the Overton window moved away, because it was no longer, their bread and butter was COVID. Maybe that's what I'm really trying to say. For those whose bread and butter, that was their business model, no matter how they were earning money off of that when that changed, they lost relevance. And your business model, their business models did not adapt for the change. It wasn't built to adapt for the change. And so the reason why I take such great personal pleasure bashing right-wing news media outlets like, Rebel News and others. So I'll keep picking on Rebel News because, when you set yourself up so easy, well, all they do half the time is throw the ball straight down the line, right? Nice, easy in the middle. It's too easy to hit it back. When your business model itself is that of a hawker, a pamphleteer, then you will always be pamphleteering. You will all, and then what Andre says, inevitably, you will be making the news, right? When you find out what got you the attention, when you figure out that, oh, I got arrested and that gave me my Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame, and I was able to convert that into a short-term fundraiser that made X tens of thousands of dollars. Hey, wait a minute, that's a business model, and then you stick to it. The problem is, if you're chasing the dollar, you're not actually delivering the spirit of that which you went to deliver to your audience. So to me, that's a lack of integrity. Can our podcast do journalistic work? Probably not. Probably not, because I'm not going to go out there and knock on doors and go through a Rolodex and make phone calls. Because I'm not, right? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to go back into the castle of my brain and dust off the cobwebs and find stuff that's relevant that goes back to the 1600s or something, and I'll share it with you because that's the thing I'm interested in. But when it comes to us relaying information, our goal is the truth, right? So whether a viewer wants to accept it or not, we hope is based on them filtering it through their journalistic endeavor, right? They do the research, they read the article, and they decide for themselves. Some stuff that I've said, well, I think this and I think this, I come back a week later after somebody dumped a brain on me and went, oh, I was wrong. Right. So and that happens too. So when we look at the current state of alternative media, that includes left, because believe me, they're out there too. The question is their journalism honest? And is their business model focused on delivering a quality product or making sure they keep the lights on at the end of the month?
Yeah, I think you and I are, we're kind of saying the same thing. So you're saying that the Overton windows changed, they flourished in COVID. I'm saying, what worked 6 years ago, maybe it's not working now. What the government did during COVID is they activated within the citizenry this capability to take control of their own lives through control of the news cycle, and people stepped up. I was late to the party. A lot of people. Viva Fry is a perfect example. Like, he just took a camera and he documented what he saw in the Freedom Convoy. And there's hundreds and thousands of other Canadians that did this, and they came up, and so the government did something wrong. These guys did something right, but then the times changed, and those people couldn't react. They couldn't adapt. I'll give you an example. Epic Times, they have it's just an online news platform, and I used to read it all the time because when everything from the election in the US, when Donald Trump got kicked out and then COVID, I was very angry, and I'm looking at this stuff and I want to understand, why is it that I'm angry? What? Because I didn't change. It's not like I hit my head somewhere and then I got a psychological issue. The government is doing something to me. So I was going on there and I was investigating, and I would interact with other people in the comment sections. Jeff Sandys he's a writer for the Epic Times, and he came to me and he said, for some reason, this is like 2022, 2023, he goes, no one's really interacting on the comment sections anymore. Well, the anger kind of dissipated. It went away. We were angry for a while, and we were talking to each other about how government is this and we should do this and that, the other thing to them. And then people got tired, and then you move on to something new. Like Sue Kellen Dyer is in the comments right now. She's got a space. So you go into space and you find your sort of family in there. Now we've moved from Epic Times to space. And then from the space, we do something like a podcast that the three of us are doing. It's more in depth. maybe this time next year, what we're doing is going to fall flat on its face. Who knows? But everything is it's escalating. The world is changing very rapidly now. I think Andre, you mentioned, what was it, every 2 days the amount of information on the internet is doubling. What was it?
That was in 2006. The amount of information, that was 19 years ago. The information was doubling every 11 hours.
Jesus.
That was 19 years ago. You can imagine today the amount of megabyte, terabyte, or that is exploding.
Yeah, that's all I had to say. I'll hand it over to you, Andre. When you guys said let's do another round, and then I want to go to some of the audience questions and comments. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, I think Tim nailed it in the sense that as human being we have to evolve. And if I go back to my own personal experience, 32 years ago when I disconnected myself, it doesn't mean that I was isolated for everything. I went to study literature, philosophy at university. I traveled. I was reading like a madman, and I started writing. Sometimes I go back in my text 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Very strangely, I don't pretend they're all good, but very strangely, it is very funny to see what I was thinking at the time and what has changed. It is very, very interesting experience. And now sometimes I go back in my essay or my article or my plays, and I go and read, and I tell myself, damn, you were wrong, but at least it was funny. You don't pretend to the truth. It is a novel, for example, or a satirical short story. With news, with information, journalism is pretending to relay reality. And with what we saw with COVID, the COVID mandate, they completely went off track. And this is where people started to understand that journalism, what we call, what was the fifth estate, is it the right expression? The fourth power. Huh? It's supposed to be there to inform people and to keep the government or the structure, the system accountable. And we understood that it doesn't do that anymore. I think Sue mentioned it in one comment. It's an organ of propaganda that does not permit you critical thinking or even thinking at all. We saw it during the mandate. When I was writing my two essay, 2021, 2022, 2023, I was completely disconnected from the outside world too, because I'm retired. I didn't have to go to work. I didn't lose my job. I was wearing a mask in the supermarket, but I was telling myself, "Go fuck, go, you hassle. If you want to put the needle in my arm, you will know who I am." And I saw what happened since 5 years. 6,700 people died in elderly houses in 3 months in Quebec without any care, nothing. That's a crime. We are in a criminal structure society. People, most of them, they still sleep because they watch mainstream media and they're completely hypnotized by them. Alternative media should bring something that would help people wake up. They did during a certain time, but Tim mentioned it. They did not evolve. Their business model was based on protest. It was a reaction. Instead of thinking about the future, what do I want tomorrow, in 5 years or 10 years? What would be Canada in 15 years? What's the future of my children or our children? How will they survive? How will they flourish? The media, the alternative media, did not provide this. And that's why their model is in danger. It's very easy to like Rebel News, and I don't want to attack Rebel News. I think they're necessary. What they do, Tim mentioned Drew Humphrey. She did a very wonderful job, and it was very emotional. And I followed her with the ostriches. Of course, it was emotional, but she was there. She was professional, and I have to thank them for this. But the business model is not only event. You have to be able to criticize the government. That's the one of the mission of journalism. And I saw, I think it was 3 years ago, there was a press conference of Justin Trudeau with Ezra Levant. And Ezra Levant, I can guarantee you, he put Trudeau in his little pocket, because Ezra Levant, he's intelligent, he's wise, and he answered to Trudeau, because Trudeau was saying, you're not journalist. Who are you? Who are you, man, to define what is journalism? You're the Prime Minister of Canada. You're supposed to give the people to citizens, and you want to shut them down. So he looked like a fool, and he is a fool. But I think journalism today could reborn, but you need integrity, and I think Tim mentioned it. So
I thought I could get you into talking again. All right, fine. Andre's right. And I suppose journalism, or we should say the newspapers, let's go back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they all did exactly the same things that we're experiencing today. Because you go back into early America prior to the Civil War, newspapers had like one town could have 12 newspapers being printed in it, with 600 subscribers here and 300 subscribers there. The fractioned space of news media back in that era was crazy, even into the early 1900s. There were many news outlets, and grant you that they were either in radio or they were like print media, newspapers, prior to the magazine, because the magazine is also another media, right? So these, in the earliest eras, they were all small. They were all fighting against each other even. And you can read it in early American history, where it's very obvious that the writer of one would have been a failed Republican candidate, and he has a newspaper and he tears apart his enemy Republican candidate who won. And what's an example? Citizen Kane shows you what that looks like, right? Excuse me. We're experiencing the same thing today. So Solomon is right. There's nothing new under the sun. One of the things that I've had to learn, I'll go a little bit too personal for a second. I have bipolar disorder, which is why I like the limelight, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'll just take it. Thanks very much. Which is why the more Payman doesn't talk, the better it is for me. But one of the things I've had to learn is, rather than quickly react, right, to external stimuli, is to take 3 seconds and think to myself, what is their motivation, right? Is that person a dick intentionally, or am I just interpreting it because I'm having an off week or something? So then we have to look at our media in the same light, which is why I'm interested in the business model, because the business model reveals the intention. If you're looking to make some kind of income from your protest or your activism or your business or your, right, if you're trying to monetize it, I want to see your business model. And if your business model is put the man in the ridiculous fedora in a place where he's pretty much guaranteed to get arrested, so we can start another fund campaign and then take some money away from that to keep the bills on, I'm not interested in that, because it's not honest. I guess that's what it is. When the time comes, if the time comes that Cerberus decides, yeah, we're going to take your money in exchange for, sharing time with you, I want us to be honest about it. I guess that's what I'm looking for. I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're right. I don't care if it's public money or private money. I just want you to be honest. That's it.
Well, if I may say, take the money and run. No, but we sometimes we have to be also entertaining people. It's information is also entertainment, and we have to make sure that we draw the line when we're serious and when we're not.
So I want to switch over to there's some good stuff in the comments. I want to go in there. First of all, these guys are beauties. Canadian Slave, thank you very much. We try our best, and I love the name as well. In this day and age, it's accurate. So thank you. If everybody could, if you could repost the stream, we'd really appreciate it. We're trying to get our viewership up. So the first question is from the Freedom Convo podcast. Is it your job to teach the people, or the people's job to teach themselves? I guess I'll tackle these first. I'll go first. We don't have we're not educated, not in the sense that we should be. We're schooled, and they teach us how to be good workers, how to be on time, how to obey. But I mean, going through the public education system, I never really learned philosophy. I was never good at reading books anyway, but they hardly ever teach you literature. They don't really teach you philosophy. They don't teach you what money is. So we don't have a foundation. And if you don't have a foundation, and if it's like Brave New World, where everybody is just addicted to television and now social media, it's hard for people to educate themselves. But I guess what the three of us here are trying to do is we give people the tools to educate themselves. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, first of all, the Freedom Convo podcast, it's our good friend David Gardner. And I do appreciate the question because it goes both ways. I was always telling myself, why did I go to study literature when I was 35 years old? Strangely, I was working at Hydro-Quebec. I was making a lot of money. I was a senior advisor. I was a business trader. And I had the urge to maybe fill a gap that I didn't have when I was in the education system. So I think our job is also to teach people, like you said, Payment, to give them instrument to be able to think by themselves, enjoy a good novel, for example. People, they also have to make an effort. You take a book that is 300 pages, just a novel. You read it because you want to enjoy yourself. Any novel, but maybe not scrap, but let's say you take great literature. You take a novel and you go read it. You become part of the story, part of the history, and you understand the reality today. So I think it is both ways. You cannot have a top-down structure. If you feed a baby, one day you expect the baby to grow up. Payment, you said it yourself. You gained a lot of confidence through your podcast and through your electoral campaign. You became somebody else. You became Payment Ascari, who evolve and who becomes mature. So I think it goes both ways. The problem with mainstream media, let's, for example, TV, is they feed you. They feed you with entertainment, and you can never make the difference between entertainment and information.
I find that what the three of us have done, knowing that you, the audience, are out there, is, with the exception of the stuff that would get us censored immediately by YouTube, when we chat off screen, we're pretty much like this. And when we have been involved with and in other groups and other combos where we've been near each other, those relationships are pretty consistent, right? So there are some elements here where we put on airs, but because this is a show, this is theater. There is an element of theater, and we play and we have fun with it, and we do our little thing, right? And so and we take advantage of that, because if we do it right, there can be an entertainment value in it. And you come back and see how much we make fools of ourselves the next time, because you dangle the carrot and I'm probably going to jump up off my chair to get a bite. In all of that, so generally then we're hanging out and we're telling stories. That's about, and so, but our stories tend to be relatively academic, meaning we like to talk about politics. We like to talk about philosophy. We like to talk about history. We like to talk about, right? And so these tend to be more academic, although we make a concerted effort, and no insult to the blue collar, because I'm from blue collar. I'm still blue collar. I just pretend I'm white collar. We tend to have our conversation, the language at that level. To accessibility is the word they're busy telling us what it has to be these days. if somewhere in our conversations and sharing this information, what we think, what we saw, what we heard, that you gain new information and are taught by it, great, right? Great. Because you can teach some of the people some of the time. You can't teach all of the people all of the time. My goal is not to teach you, right? My 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 honestly, my goal honestly is a year and a bit ago, Payman and Andre and I were in another channel on Telegram, and Payman said, "Listen, I was thinking of putting a podcast together with three of us. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I'm like, "Well, who with?" And he said, "Well, Andre." And I'm like, "The frog?" Right? And he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And, and here we are. And here we are. So I don't want that to ever change. And if we did find a way, to monetize this, to make some money at it, then our production values will obviously reap the benefit of that. There will be considerably more research, and we're already talking about ways in which we can actually provide, written copy of our research so you can get it yourself, et cetera. And how do we paywall that? Because nothing should be for free, blah, blah, blah. So we're having all of those conversations. But it's because we like doing this. We've been doing this. This is 52. I think this is episode 55. I've missed 2, right? And I think that's pretty much the same for all of us. So, and we're not getting paid. And this takes preparatory work, right? It's not me so much because I like the improv element of it. I like the shock and awe bit, but more so now. So if as we move forward and gain, well, as you people start asking better questions, my God, like pick up the game already, right? Then all of us will elevate together, right? And we always will be solutions based. Do we want to do the whole amygdala thing, get all excited and panic about fucking Palestinian flags in Toronto? And do we want? Yes, of course we do, because we understand the value of clickbait and having a laugh at Babylon, because dumber than dirt. But then we want to go into it and say, okay, now here's how you can support your family through this. Here's how you can make sure that, when the bread line starts filling up, you're still going to get bread. That's our ultimate goal, right? So how to teach people? I guess.
Payman, it's your turn.
I thought I already answered. I went first. Nice try. I already addressed that.
Well, I will just react 30 seconds to what Tim said. We Cerberus at the improv or Cerberus at the gate now. I also, and this is for the viewers, I suggest to those two gentlemen to drop the frog and to hire an English Canadian speaker, so they would increase 30% of the viewers. They refused. So thank you.
It's astounding. My memory is so bad. I don't recall any of this. You could just be making all this up for all I know.
We are making the events.
So Sue, thank you very much for the kind words. She says this podcast is still one of the best. Thank you. Your space is really good as well. Go follow Sue Kellen Dyer and be sure to jump in her space. Get your finger on the pulse of Canada. So Sue Kellen Dyer says journalism is dead in Canada. I'll share a story. The gentleman I referenced earlier, Jeff Sandys of Epic Times, he's a journalist, and I've had him on my show a couple of times, and we were talking, and he gave this really good story. He goes, 20, 30 years ago, you're at the bar with your buddy, you're having a beer, and if you have a political disagreement, you say, this is why I support this, and the guy says, this is why I don't support it. And you have a disagreement, and then you cheers and you continue. He goes, today, like if that happened, if you had a disagreement, you would be like, well, F you, and the other guy would be like, well, F you too, and then you'd leave, you'd never talk to him, he'd leave, you'd go get another circle of friends, and the other guy would get a new circle of friends. He didn't really mention why that is. It's a psychological thing that's changed, but that was his way of saying, there is no more and he says, a journalist, there's no more journalistic integrity because people are so polarized. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, I can refer to, you were referring to David Mendes or Drew Humphrey, and there's another person I like a lot is Alex Salavoie from Rebel News, and she's covering many events in Quebec because she's French. She speaks French. She speaks English, and it is quite funny because the idea of journalism would be to be able to cover an event. She goes with a camera, and she's always aggressed. And people, they arrive and they say, and they all have their mobile phone, and they say they film everything, but don't touch me, don't touch me. And you say, wait a second, wait a second. Exactly what you said, Payment. Journalism is dead in a sense that you cannot have a debate. A journalist is supposed to bring the event, to cover the event, so people can discuss about it and agree or disagree. We don't have this anymore. All those uh, uh, political movement or political movement, they are isolated. I think Sue is right. How do we restore this? By reason, moderation, modesty, and honesty.
Since you want me to keep jumping in, I'll just add the same guy, Jeff Sanders.
I didn't want you to jump in this time. Damn it.
Too late. He said, like the purpose of a journalist is to go in and get the facts, get both sides, and present it to the people to make their own decision, not to shape people's minds. Go ahead, Tim.
So Sue Dyer is right and wrong in the same sentence, which I'm sure she's perfectly happy with. Journalism is dead in Canada because we shot all the journalists. Thanks, Trotsky. I mean, Trump. I mean, Trudeau. I mean, right? Insert name here, right? Is where journalism presented a obstacle or a watchdog or a challenge to somebody with more power and more influence, that journalist was, what do we call it now? Canceled, right? So journalism is not dead. The journalists are dead. And in their place are these sycophants, right? So mainstream media are sycophantic to a fault, sycophantic. And they're sycophantic to their paymaster, which means if the paymaster sends their watchdog onto some right-wing media or some right-wing event or some whatever, that's exactly what they're going to do. So we have a weaponized media, which we call propaganda. We call, on the right, we call it propaganda because that's the word we like to call it. But on the left, they call it propaganda too. So we still haven't figured out what's actually happening. But we've absolutely weaponized public media. It's absolutely been weaponized. And it's been used under the skin mask of actual journalism. If you're all familiar with the concept of the skin mask, right? Which is a complete necrophiliac representation. So if I keep saying things like that, I'm going to end up sounding like one of Andre's characters in one of his books. Be like one of these romantic, self-deprecating, horrible creatures who is ultimately a mirror of ourselves. I think that's most of Andre's writing. So if our business model is journalism, then the integrity and trust built over time by delivering that will pay, and people will be able to make an income at it, right? And so that's my thought as far as where Western right-wing, even centrist media should go, is aim for, right, to aim for journalistic integrity. And yes, it's slower. Yes, it's a smaller audience. Yes, it takes time, but it's still integrity. I think the idea that we're going to make millions doing this is a complete pipe dream. And if you think it can, then I've got some crypto to sell you.
Well, first of all, we can make millions rubles, so it is not that much. And Tim, don't give me ideas because maybe I will write a novel with the two of you.
Just like to say that we do accept Bitcoin if anybody wants to make donations. The next comment again is from Sue Dyer. What do you call a country where mainstream media news is PR for government? Nobody is accountable. The books are cooked. Policy development is done offshore, and elections are incompletely run. Canada.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I, I almost don't want to comment on this because I'd just be repeating everything she said. It's perfect.
No,
I'm
it's
going to throw it
because
to you.
she answered the answer is wrong. How do you
Just
call
spell
a country
Canada
where
wrong.
MSN News is PR for government? It's Soviet Union, and the the news are the Pravda. We are. I'm sorry. We can use the word communism. Tim mentioned earlier that communists were not people. I do agree. I do. I do agree with this. But when we mention the word communist or we mention the word fascism, we put a category on something, and it doesn't help if you accuse somebody of you're a communist. You paint the person in one category and you avoid the debate. I i make jokes about it, but the tendency is there, the tendency of censorship, concentrating the power of the media, censoring people, avoiding debate. We saw it during the debate that I did not watch, I'm sorry, during the electoral campaign. uh, who's organizing this payment? You yourself, you attended to what, 6 or 7 debate, and you always said the same thing. Was it neutral? I think 1 or 2 debate were, in your opinion, were neutral. All the rest they were biased. So if you want to reinstore the nobleness of journalism, you need integrity, you need honest people, you need strong people. It's hard for a journalist, young journalist who goes out from university, for example, and he's hired by a national media, let's say the National Post, and the editor will tell you, shut up and write this, and that's it, and you publish it like this. The young person will maybe comply at first. Older journalists who have experience, and they have experienced something different, they will criticize and they will be fired. So I think the young generation has to uh, straighten up their head and say, wait, I do not comply. I did not study journalism to be a vassal of the government.
Go ahead, Tim.
It just gave me a business idea. I'm gonna make a tiny little app, and it's just headlines and just subtitles. You know, like the little 1 sentence summaries that they're doing nowadays. The title is like 12 words long because they're trying to sell you, knowing that you're not going to read the article anyway. So little title and subtitle, and then I just push it through an AI news aggregator and just have it scrub titles and summarize them and pump them out. And I'll call it slot media, and I'll charge people $1 a day to read slot media, and it's not actually news. It's just headlines and subtitles and a click to, I don't know, some girl selling Bitcoin or something. That's it. Done.
Um, so Sue, I see Sue's got the bulk of the comments as usual, but I'm going to skip ahead over her comments. Maybe we'll come back if we have time. JT says the unification of government, corporations, and the fourth estate is as fascistic as it gets. Originally I read it as fantastic as it gets. The fourth estate one, the media, it's been usurped. It's been hijacked. So they're using our tax dollars against us. I wouldn't say that's a unification. Sorry, it's not a partnership. I know you didn't use that word, but they took it over. Like they're using our tax dollars to create a monopoly for government propaganda. But the government, the corporations, that's all I see now in Canada. Like the people have no representation.
Racketeering. That's the model.
Racketeering, and also asking for compliance. When you threaten somebody to fire the person if the person does not comply, this is, first of all, it's blackmail. And most people will fall for it. We saw it during the COVID mandate. Many people took the shot because they were forced, And so I can imagine young journalists. I think there's a lot of people who disagreed, but through the event, you have to comply. So if you have to comply, you become accomplice. It is not a joke what I'm saying. Nuremberg trial, huh? I did not know is not a defense when you are an accomplice to a crime, and that's what happened. I think there's a lot of journalists today that regret what they did because they were forced to do it. I think the GT is right. The tendency is there. The tendency is there about fascism.
Can I cut in? I'm going to make a sensitive reference. Hashtag Me Too. Right. So
Yes,
what
yes.
happened? And regardless of the severity and the horrendous nature of that whole culture in Hollywood and other similar places, I'm going to sound really horrible when I say this. You cashed the check. Accept a degree of responsibility. So the journalist who says, I didn't have a choice, this is a Nuremberg problem, I was doing what I was told, you cashed the check. Right? Dale just made a comment. I want to pull that up if you can, please. That's because we are allowing our power to be usurped. Oh, look 120, an hour and 20 minutes before I had a rant. Here we go. You cashed the effing check. You were a journalist. We trusted you. You had the nice car. You had the pretty clothes. You had the nice watch. We gave you a position in upper middle class Canada, and you cashed the check. I have no respect for you. I don't care who you are. When you throw terrific theater like Don Cherry under the bus because he made a simple, honest to God encouragement to Canadians to respect our war dead, when you allow that man to be thrown under the bus like that, I have no respect. Right? The Communist Broadcasting Corporation cashes the check every day. And that it will include Global, it will include CTV, it will include all those sub channels, it will include, even National Post, they're trying very hard to regain a centrist position. F you. Same garbage. F you. I have trouble with Brian, was it Brian Tilley? Brian, you know who I'm talking about. Toronto Sun. Brian Lilly, I can't remember his name. But
Brian Lilly.
Yeah, trying very hard to hug a centrist line. That's fine. As a journalist, I can appreciate that because we're calling you to push the rock up the hill, knowing that it's pushing. We know that, right? So if you can, as a journalist, maintain that integrity and say, you know what, the left is pretty left, and this is how, and this is why. So we want you to be educated and to know this. Oh, and by the way, the right is pretty right, and there and this and that and this, but we want you to know that. I, as a journalist, am not a judge. I am not a jury. I'm only identifying what they did and its impact, right? Its effect. That's a journalist, right? So all of these other shills who cashed the check deserve what you get. End of rant.
So we have somebody that disagrees with you, Tim, and it's quite cross with you. And his name is none other than Tim. So Tim says, that's not nice. I have friends in Quebec, and I've had tons of people on my farm from Quebec. I think it's back when you called Andre a frog.
But
he's just joking.
I haven't made any jokes about how good frog legs taste.
well, yes, they are. But Tim, thanks a lot. And I follow him, but I've listened to him many times. He's a strong man, and I would say something toward what Tim just said.
Tim?
Yes, Tim Knight. Yes, they cashed the check. You have some journalists in Quebec now. They regret. And it was quite funny because I saw some politicians, they went on their show and they accepted, just going on their show meant that they were accepting what they did. Personally, I don't accept it. Somebody would call me, a journalist who proposed to put us in internal camp, would call me and he would say, hey, mainstream media, popular journalism, whatever. He would call me and he would say, "You would want to come? You want to come?" I would say, "No, I would not go because you betrayed me and you betrayed millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people, and you expect me to go on your show? You have no credibility." Some of them, they are considered intellectual in Quebec. I laugh. You cannot imagine how I laugh, because some people I respect, they refer to those journalists, and as soon as they say this, I say, "This man, no, why?" But he wanted to put us in an internal camp. He wanted to force the injection. No. Oh, he apologized. He doesn't have to apologize. He should be trial. It's not the same thing at all. They committed a crime and they are accomplice to a crime. And after that, they pretend that nothing exists. Sorry. The motto of the province of Quebec is "Je me souviens." I remember. And I can guarantee you there's an old story about the dog that bites his master. It's still at in one building in Quebec, and it's a small dog that remember. It's a poem, and the dog remembers, and the dog one day will bite his master who mistreated him. There's no way we can forget what happened, and those people, they cannot call them journalists anymore, whether they are in Quebec or whatever. It was everywhere on the planet. Like Tim said, they took the check. They swallow the bait. They have to pay now.
That's actually that's not why I brought that. I was going to bring up Tim's other comment. We can go to this one. This one's serious. Sounds like where Russia was just before the collapse of the USSR. I've been
100%.
saying this. I've been saying this. Canada is communist. Not even the authoritarianism. It's just a scarcity. Like you go into a store and we don't have the same level of products that they do down south in the U.S. Like it's and I've lived and worked in a post-Soviet republic before. I know what communism does, and that's what's happening in Canada. I guess maybe Tim, if you want to go.
Quick comment to Tim. So our man Tim here. Now I'm always every time I meet a Tim, the first thing I want to know is, I'm reminded of Sesame Street, big A, little a, what starts with A. And through my life, I've met Tims, and every single Tim I've ever met was bigger than me. So now we have the big Tim, little Tim. Anyway, I'm just a squirrel thing. I'm not offending Quebecers. I'm not offending the French. And when Andre can call me a newfie all he wants, I'm not offended, right? Actually, I'm probably more offended if he called me Irish, mostly because it's true, right? And yeah, that's. Anyway, so I'm not trying to be offensive. Now I'm defending myself. Fuck. I'm Irish. I hate everybody equally. Leave me alone, damn it. The Canada is at the cusp of a collapse similar to the era of the Bolshevik Revolution. That's where I feel that we are. So we're moving into that era. And I think the Liberal Party has, as the Bolshevik, and the Conservative Party as the Mensheviks, are finally eventually going to blend into one, which we call the Uniparty in the West. And I think that's the era we are in now. And that is a period that was only about 12, 15 years. So when we talk about last episode, we talked about Canada will be insolvent. And I use the word insolvent. What I mean is our interest paid will be equal to half of the amount we owe because of compounding interest. And we are 40 years away from that. And I think that as far as a government transformation into a Bolshevik, Menshevik, communist organization is only, 2030. Let me give a hard line. Agenda 2030, we got them off course. We slowed the bastards down with the convoy. Maybe stripped a few and pushed them back a couple of years, but now they got everything back on track again, right? So with this, to me, this apocalyptic moment in the future, I'm mindful that, going back to journalism again, our right-wing media not only do you have the opportunity to talk about an Overton window that is not here yet, and that's called the Make Work Project. There's your business model. We're going to talk about an Overton window that hasn't come yet, 2030, right? As opposed to the emergency that's right in front of us that tomorrow will be behind, because the government loves to move the goalposts. And if your business model can't adapt to a moving goalpost, why are you in business, right? So as long as the three of us are not monetizing, we're not jammed in. We can flex, but I still want your money, and we're figuring out how to do that. Right? But the we want to be honest, and we want to say we think this, and if you disagree, share with us. Let's have a conversation, right? I mean, we ourselves, the three of us, you'll see every now and then we're like, no, I don't quite think it's that way, and usually it's me telling the frog that he's been in boiled water too long, right? But where we want to go with the show is to remain honest. And if we see something that we think that mainstream has intentionally not shared, or right-wing media has missed, or alternative media is not discussing, or you're not hearing on X, or you're not hearing it on et cetera, then we want to bring that to light, not to teach you, but to give you more ammo, right? To add arrows to your quiver. That's what I'd like to see.
Can we? I don't know how we're doing for time. We got another good one from Sue. Do you guys got a couple of minutes?
Can I just make a
Go
quick
ahead.
comment about what Tim wrote? First of all, the frog when the frog is in the hot water, the flesh is more tender. I can guarantee you that. Sounds like where Russia was just before the collapse of the USSR. Two events in the Russian history. The first event is that when the death of Ivan the Terrible. It was the time of trouble, and at the time of trouble, the political power was struggling to reunite. That brought Boris Godunov, and it brought a very, very harsh era in the Russian history. The second time is, yes, like Tim mentioned, the Bolshevik and the Menshevik. Bolshoi means big. Menshevik means small or different. And the merge of those two movements, maybe we could call today the Uni Party, but the idea of the collapse of the USSR in 1989, that was more the fatigue of a system that was trying to hide reality with fiction. We saw it during many, many years. The Soviet Union people did not believe in the system anymore, but they were acting automatically. What do we see here now in Canada? When we see the idea of what is happening now, concentration of power, concentration of the media, censorship, it's the hardcore of a regime that is afraid to lose its power. The opportunity is there for alternative media to break the mold and to bring back integrity. But you need people, you need strong people to be able to do this. You need people who will not be afraid to speak, are not afraid to admit that they were wrong. Sometimes we will say something and we will be wrong and we will have to apologize for it. And that is something that the mainstream media never does. They never do this. Why? They push a news, they push an event, a news, and if they represent the event, they never come back and they never apologize. They just go forward. They never come back. Did you ever see CBC or Radio Canada come back on an event? Never, because it's not in their model. That's why I say mainstream media are dead.
Let me reflect on this. Okay, so when Tim put up this note, my head was, he was referring to the end of Tsarism, and then right in the collapse. That's why I made the Bolshevik and Menshevik references. But as far as Russia just before the collapse of the USSR, I'm more interested in Russia's attempt to resist Europeanization. right? To resist westernization, to resist Americanization. The moment those walls came down, Coca-Cola and Levi's were everywhere inside Russia. So perestroika, what was the other one? Perestroika and
Glasnost.
thank you,
Glasnost.
Glasnost, right? So these two national policies, international relationships, completely threw open the iron gates. Once an iron curtain becomes an iron gate, threw the gates open, and the West flooded in. And before you know it, the satellite countries are, I'm out of here and I'm taking my piece of pie, because like Balaam and Balak's, slut trading whores conned all the satellite nations away to go to Americanized and a Europeanized model. Right or wrong, this is what happened. They were conned away. They were lured away, right? And so I think that everything that we've seen in Russia since then is consistently It's trying to regain its Russianness.
It's trying. It's not
Right?
trying.
Right?
They're
Right?
succeeding.
Well, it's taken 40 years.
Well, of course,
Right?
but
2029 will be 40 years
the
since
acceleration,
1989.
since 2022 is phenomenal. And I don't say that Russia has they don't have problem. They do have a problem.
No, they don't. I'm just referring as a historical event, right? And 40 years is basically 2 generations these days. Desperate to return to its Russian roots, its Russian character. And Europe always had its teeth bared to Russia. Always. They never liked each other. They never really trusted each other. And so be it.
Could you really trust the British Crown?
Right. Well, it's well, up until about 10 years ago, I would have said, yes, I trust the British Crown. And I would have distrusted the Russian bear. And now, to varying degrees, those tables are not turning entirely, because I know Russia's still, dangerous, and I know that they still take.
The bear is
right?
big.
The bear is still a bear, right?
You want to swallow the bear.
Right? Yeah. So, and you mentioned the acceleration at 2020. I think the acceleration started 2014 when NATO installed Zelensky and his cronies, right, into the Ukraine government, because NATO was busy getting his fingers as close to the Russian border as humanly possible. So to me, that's a major trigger for putting your foot on the throttle at that point, and Russia having to respond very obviously and on an international scale in order to maintain its personal interests. That actually is an interesting thing to talk about maybe at another time, was how the American media dealt with that, right? How the Western media dealt with that. We're talking about media, then maybe we have an opportunity. It's a bit off where our vector, but we could certainly talk about 2014 to 2020 and what American and Western media was doing to paint Russia into a corner, right? That would be an interesting conversation, because I know that Western media, the right-wing stuff and the alternate stuff, they didn't. The only people on the right that since 2014 that have been talking about Russia are the friggin' televangelists and the prophets, because there's money in that.
Well, I could have talked about it, but nobody was listening. So,
well,
I'm not going to repeat what you guys said, but I am I muted? No, I'm not going to repeat what you guys said, but you're right. I'll just add. I think they wanted to completely break apart Russia through Yeltsin, and the only thing that held it together was Putin, and he's done a remarkable job fighting their version of the deep state.
Well, let's talk about 1 minute. Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin. I know the personal story of Boris Yeltsin, who was a completely alcoholic. But just thinking about the project of dismembering Russia, it's a project that is in the file since the 17th century. This is not new. When you really go back in the with the Lithuanian Empire and the Polish Empire and the Empire, the Russian Empire and the British Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was already there. They always try to dismantle Russia, because Russia is a civilization in itself. It is not just a country. And that's why they I would call them the elite, the globalist, whatever you want. They don't like opposition. So I think we will see how the event will unfold in 2026. That will be interesting.
I'm just doing honorable mentions here.
Well, no, Tim just mentioned Clyde do something. I remember he showed up in my feed very early 21-ish, not during the convoy, but before, so 21-ish, and he was relevant, and he was right, and he was very Canadian, not just in his physical, the theater of his background and what he wore and whatnot, which was clever, but he was relevant, and what he said was useful. And once the Overton window of the crisis had passed, suspended, but the moment, because fatigue sets in. You mentioned fatigue earlier, right? The fatigue sets in, and what you realize is the Overton window that you just spent the last 3 months hanging on to has moved on, and you can't adapt. And I think Clyde do something, and many others like him realized the only way to remain relevant would be to shift your audience. So he swapped his audience to Conservative Party audience, right? So those hangers on from the right who were non-political, a lot of them are just not, they don't vote, right? The do not vote class, right? At hanging on, and now they're in conflict with him. And it's those who he lost trust from are the ones who he fights against now. But this is a beast of his own creation. Why did he swing over to that way? Because when you go from a carpenter's salary to, him with what, 200,000-300,000 followers, that's a bit of money, right? So, and we always outspend our budget, right? So, and like I said, you cash the check, right? This is your bed. You make it, you lie in it. And then after you people start throwing tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars at us, I'm going to make sure that it's a really comfortable bed because I have to lie in it.
Well, that's Dr. Faust and Mephistopheles. Huh? You make a deal with the devil.
I don't know if I can comment quickly on Clyde and Zoltan. Clyde do something, believe it or not. I did an interview with him, and he's a libertarian. He's not an anarcho-capitalist, but he's a libertarian. And then when the election happened, because everybody got scared, don't split the vote, many of the podcasters got co-opted by the Conservative Party. So he was very much in the conservative camp, and he was very hostile or very critical of the People's Party and the supporters of the People's Party. After the election, a few weeks ago, I heard him on a space, and he was talking, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, what Clyde is saying is the most sane, most rational thing I've ever heard, and it's making complete sense. He was talking about Bill C8, C9, and he's tying it to property rights. He said, if we don't have access to our internet, if we can't get the information out, we're not a free people. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized he's actually a libertarian. Like, he's a sensible guy. It's just he got whipped up in that whole don't split the vote thing.
So he just followed the movement, like many others.
People are scared. I'm trying to be nice to the guy. Canadians are scared, right? Like, their country is disintegrating, and
I do agree. But you have a karma too. You have a karma. If you did this, it takes a life to build a reputation. It takes 5 minutes to destroy it.
If I wanted people to be nice to me, I wouldn't present as a dick all the time. Right? What's that line? I'd rather be respected and feared than loved. You know why? Because I have 4 adult children that I'm leaving this country to. I have a new granddaughter that I'm leaving this country to. I have a widowed mother. My father was a guardsman. Canadian Guard with the military. He is one of 4 color party to deliver the maple leaf flag to every legislation across Canada back in 1965. He served with honor and distinction with the Peace Corps over in Cyprus and whatnot, and changing of the guard at the Parliament Hill, which I remember when I was 2 and 3 and 4 years old. That, I'm not referring to the era, but the people in Canada in that era, regardless of the garbage and insidiousness of what was above them, were honorable men and women who believed in a nation that had standards and integrity, and the Canada that was a traditional Christian valued structure, and we believed in it. And that is what makes it true, because they lived like it. Nowadays, when right nuts want to tear apart that generation and shred them and say, oh, boomers, this and boom, and all this, you can fuck right off. Because what you're doing is you're sensationalizing the puppeteers and not respecting the men and women who lived in it. And my hope is that journalistic integrity does not resort to splitting Canadians apart based on what is acceptable now and judging the past by today's new moral code, because that always goes badly.
This is interesting what you're.
That was a different kind of. I wasn't really trying to rant in that direction, but when you piss on my Canada, I get mad.
Well,
right?
you just
I'm an
said
ideologue for my country and what it once upon a time believed in, and I would like to retain that because it was honorable.
You just said something important. Judging the past with present values. Strangely, you said you believed in Canada. I'm from Quebec, and I never believed in Canada until 2022, until the Freedom Convoy, and I started to tell it's like you're on a trajectory. You're going down, and I'm going. You're going down. I'm going up, and we met at a point, where historic point, where we were asking the same question: what is Canada? But with different background. I can talk about the French Canadian history. You can talk about the Newfoundland history. Payment could talk about the history of a young man, a little boy who arrived from Iran, and it is perception, or is Canada, his idea of Canada, and we met. Then strangely, we ask the same hard question today. We do the job of journalists who do not do this job. What is Canada, and what do we want as a country? A free country. Is Canada free? No. Do we want to free ourselves? Yes. How do we do it? We have to unite, and we have to be able to debate, discuss, and disagree. And if there's an event that has to be covered by a journalist, it has to be covered with integrity. If it is not covered with integrity, it becomes a business model. And this is where I look at, national media like the CBC. Those systems should be dismantled completely. We talk about free market. There's no free market. There's no free market in information. Not now.
Just going to make some honorable mentions. Dale Richardson says time for some action. Just to be clear, he's a legislative guy. Legal action is what he means.
He's
JP
right.
Berg, bravo, gentlemen, get mad. It's time. I can't whitewash that. It is what it is. Peggy says, in my opinion, the media has always been owned. They just figured out how to get the taxpayers to pay.
Yes.
RB Ham, where else can I watch this besides X? You can watch it on Rumble and YouTube. I believe Cerberus at I don't know what the handle is, whatever it is, Cerberus at the Improv.
It's Cerberus at the Improv for now.
Cerberus at the Improv, and will be live streaming to Substack shortly. RB Ham shamelessly making a plug for an episode between me and him tonight at 8 p.m. Go catch us on Beyond the Pale. You can catch it on Rumble. And finally, Trying to look and find Timothy's account here on X and cannot find it. Would like to share his account with others. Thunderbird World Media, his handle is at T William Knight. It's just right there under his name. And I think that, oh, there's some more. that convoy gave people that lost a lot of hope, more gumption, and ability to move past their own selfishness and love their country again. They must smash their egos. All right. I'm reading The Inconvenient Indian. How do freedom lovers unite with the First Nations? I don't know.
Is that an assumption that the First Nations aren't freedom lovers? I mean, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying something negative to Frida, but are the freedom lovers and First Nations, are they two ideologically opposed entities?
Let me jump in here, Andre.
Wait, the two of you want to get in on right away. Let's talk about the FN, right? Once again, this is a program of division, right? That's my take on it. So how do we unite with them? We ignore the brand and we talk to the person.
Go ahead, Andre.
No, go ahead, Payman. It's your turn.
I was just going to come to her defense. I think when Frida, I get what you're saying, Tim, but in her defense, she can't respond. When she says freedom lovers, it's like when we say, how do Canadians unite with First Nations, even though they are Canadians? She means the three of us, people who, right of center and supporters of the Freedom Convoy, I assume. Go ahead, Andre.
Well, I will have to quote Michael Jones when he's talking about Nick Fuentes in the United States, or he's talking about some Jewish like the ADL who attack him all the time, and he says, "I'm not angry with you, and I don't hate you." And I think if we go back to the First Nation, I will say that's an advice for First Nation people, Indigenous people. Look at your leaders, because they receive billions of dollars of subsidiarities for decades, and you still have some communities who don't have running water. Who is really responsible? White Canadian, Black Canadian, French Canadian, English Canadian, or Indian Canadian, or Greek, or Russian, or Ukrainian, or your leader? Your leader. Sometimes I cross in reserve and I tell myself, this is a third world country. So how to unite with indigenous people? Follow people who tell the truth. We can talk about what happened in Kamloops. That's quite interesting, because why I was saying mainstream media never apologized. They provided false information about the graves. Nothing was discovered, and they never apologized. So stop bullshitting other people. Watch your leader, union leader, tribe leaders, government, MPs, MLAs. Those people are responsible. Let's be honest today. It is not just about reconciliation. There will be no reconciliation in Canada if people fight against each other and do not identify the real enemy. The oligarchy, the corporation, the MLA, the MPs, they're all there for their benefit. End of the ramp.
I had a quote Star Trek. There can be no peace while Kirk lives.
What is that? The Wrath of Khan?
No, I think it's from The Undiscovered Country. My point is, while there is a leadership that will not respect the people, there will not be progress, right? And as Frida properly pointed out, we will continue to be referring to people as freedom lovers, or First Nations, or Muslims, or Indians, or temporary foreign workers, or Quebecers, or Albertans, or right wing, these like the Greeks who desperately wanted to label everything. here we are doing the same thing, as opposed to you've got 3 adult men here on this channel who happen to be from Newfoundland and Quebec and West Vancouver, right? I mean, you came here, how were you 4 when you came to Canada?
I was 6.
6. What do you know? Nothing, right? Nothing except that your family was smart and escaped certain death, right? So here we are with 3 very different people with 3 different, lots of categories and labels that we could very easily attach to us, who simply say, I would like my family to live in peace. And if by raising my voice, I help others to, find that for themselves, then I will raise my voice, because I'm slow and short and old and fat, and I'm not very good with melee weapons, but I can talk. So I'll do that much until it's time to, pick up a melee weapon.
Yes, but you're Irish too, so if I
Which
could
means
repri-
which means one of us will be going to the hospital or in a bag.
Well, 1837, some Irish people were hanged with the Patriots in Quebec, so we're all in this together.
I'm thinking, do you remember when we did a 3-hour episode? Man, we've gone over our 90-minute usual, but we're slipping. We're getting old, gentlemen. We can't do the 3 hours anymore.
What do you mean you
I
can
think-
do?
I
You cannot.
I think we're pretty much I think we're ready to wrap up. I do want to share with the audience, we would like more exposure. We are seriously discussing monetization and how to do that. So we want more exposure. We are also considering expanding the topics that we discuss and moving more toward a more prepared approach to the topics. We were earlier thinking that we would use like 3 topics and then wander back and forth between each, and realize maybe we want something a little more central, one more topic. So while we're discussing how we want to format the show, we're also now beginning to have internal discussions about an actual business model. While we prepare to do that and unravel it all and reassemble it, push us around to your friends, share our stuff, and come out. More and more of you, we want to send you over to find us over on Substack, find payment on Substack. Over time, we plan to gravitate to one single distribution point, because it's a lot of work to be on Rumble and X and YouTube and Facebook and so that we feel we want to consolidate the effort, and so that we can present to you a destination that's not just a 2-hour podcast once a week. So these are the discussions we're having. So with that in mind, share us with everybody so that we go from 250 views to 750 views. Andre thinks that we can get 7.5 billion views.
No, I would be more modest.
7 billion.
Well, if we undress, maybe we will achieve it.
Georgia Guidestone?
0 views.
0 negative views, because it'll be us watching, which is
they're gonna take views away.
I don't have time to sit down in my doctor's chair today to talk about that.
Tales from the crypt.
Tales from the crypt.
But something I would like to add, Uncle Ray, one of my friend that I have conversation with him, and he mentioned this often to me. He said, Cerberus is like a party and we're not invited. And it was interesting, the comment that we have a discussion. We want to share this discussion with other people. And this is quite important. If we are part of this alternative media, we need integrity, we need honesty, modesty. We need to be funny too. It is not just a boring sleeping pill, and to be able to provide ideas. That's the main goal. Provide ideas for people so they can enjoy and they can think by themselves.
And Sue Kellen Dyer, she says reciprocity is appreciated. So Sue Kellen Dyer, she has a space. Go ahead and follow her. And Mr. Dale Richardson also has a podcast. Go ahead and follow him. I don't know any other mentions. Is there anyone else in the audience that we know?
JB and Freedom Convo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where is he? Who's JB? Do you mean JT?
No, sorry, RB.
Oh well, I already did a plug for RB, Beyond the Pale. And here we go. The Freedom Conversation podcast.
Yeah, there's Freedom Convo. He's remarkably good and very fresh. He's authentic. I like it. And John Paul. Yeah.
JP Berg is another one. Semper Veritas. All right, guys. I guess that's it.
The Remanded. There he is.
Where is he?
Right at the bottom.
Here?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a podcast, but go ahead and give him a follow. He's doing remarkable things and support his election integrity initiatives.
Yeah. He's kind of like Rorschach. I won't say anything.
Sorry, I was just reading the comments. Yeah. So I guess God damn it. Yeah. So the Remanded came on my show.
50K.
50,000. Now, it wasn't the episode. It was the post of the episode. But 50,000 impressions for a Payment of Scurry podcast? Man, that... If I make $1 million, I'll give half of it to you. Remember?
Okay, fine. We'll give him a raise.
We are witness to that.
Yeah.
No. I'm giving him my half, not you guys.
That's what I understood.
I don't know, man. I think you need to keep some palms greased over here.
Well, obviously, it's half.
Really, I mean, the two of us, we make you look good. Like, really.
It's half of the profits. I spend nearly $300,000 a year just on the StreamYard license. So we subtract that, and whatever's left over, I'll give half to Remanded.
You sound like a liberal now.
All right.
Tax credit.
So now it's going to be Cerberus the Cartel.
The Cartel, yeah. The Cartel at the Improv.
Right.
Okay, as usual, we're drifting, so we're gonna bring the episode to a close. Join us next week, same time, same channel. Hopefully, we'll also be on Substack. And big thank you to my co-hosts and to everyone in the audience. Take care.
Good night.